3. So, I should have had you set this up. It's very different than Zoom.
That's okay.
And I do honestly prefer this.
Yeah.
So much. So you're Jacob Elijah Lincoln, and
Full name.
It's your full name. It's your recording name, as I discovered, because I was able to link you on my Spotify with the Sacred Heart track that you sang on.
Nice.
And so, and I was listening to your music. I haven't listened to it in a while, and you haven't released anything.
That's the problem, right there.
You have like 3 songs. When did you record the one, like the screaming guitar lead one? What was that one?
Carol of the Bells?
Carol of the Bells.
Oh, dude. So that was about 2010.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like whenever the holidays roll around, for whatever reason, I get all inspired.
Yeah.
I just want to play music or do something. So I think it was one of those, a week before Christmas, and it's like, oh, I want to do something. So at that time, I feel like it was at the height of my production career, because I was trying to pursue it full time.
Yeah.
Just out of my little apartment in North Pole. But yeah, I had everything hooked up from like previous sessions with folks, and then I just picked it up and programmed some drums and played guitar. Actually, to this day, when I listen to it, I'm like, that actually holds up pretty good.
The quality is pretty awesome.
Yeah, especially for 10 years ago, because I didn't necessarily know what I was doing.
What were you using? What were you recording on back then?
I was in Logic, but again, the computer, 10 years old, probably 15 years old if you look at the gear that we were using. But I did have like a Line 6 pod, and it actually had some pretty good distortion tones, so it was just plugged in directly.
Nice.
And then the drums were Tune Track Superior drummer, and I programmed them, and that one I actually sent off to get mastered too, so that always helps. Get the Petty John shine on it.
Is that who you went through?
Yeah,
Steven?
Yeah, our old buddy Steven.
He does go. Steven Petty John Electronics. He makes pedals.
Yes.
And he masters. And if you're buddies with him, he'll mix your song too.
Yeah.
But you have to be friends with him.
You gotta be friends.
You gotta be friends. But yeah, he just moved to Montana, I think.
Did he? Well, he's been in Oregon for a long time.
Yeah, he moved. I think he moved.
Okay.
Yeah, he has a whole new shop and everything, and he's just doing. I actually saw Drew Shirley from Switchfoot has one of his pedals.
Oh, that's cool.
That's how you know
you've made it. When
Drew,
Switchfoot uses them.
Oh my god, and Drew's like a huge pedals guy.
Yeah.
I remember one time I watched a video where he had like a Chaos pad. He was running with he had a Chaos pad up here, and he'd manipulate his guitar tones while anyway.
Nice.
They're a great band. But yeah, so I met you at a Little Owl.
Well, I think we digitally met first, and we have all these mutual friends.
Yeah,
I had heard of your band, Young Fangs, before my wife and I moved to California for a couple years.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, we never connected. It's like we had all these mutual friends.
Yeah, you were all the way in North Pole.
Way out there, yeah. It's a long drive. But so I think we were Facebook buddies for a while.
Yeah.
And then I think you were sitting there at the coffee shop, and I was just going in to get some coffee. And I'm like, Josh, it's like, nice to finally meet you in person.
And I'd met, the thing was, it goes back, me knowing about you goes back even further, because Eric Gettinger from Say Yes fame, Ember before that, and
probably half a dozen
before that,
pop punk bands back in the early 2000s.
Exactly. Bystander, I think that was the early one. It was him, Chris Merlot, and I can't remember. Maybe Nick was on drums. I can't remember. Mm-hmm. Or Jared Williams.
So same 6 guys.
Yeah, same 6 guys. But he actually has the songs you recorded for your now wife.
Oh wow!
So
how did he get that?
I don't know. He had them. I remember because I think it was when I was out of work. I think I was doing sheetrock on Eielson, and then the winter came, so it slowed down. And so I worked with him. He had Geddes painting and drywall, and so I'd work with him doing apartments and houses and stuff.
Yeah.
And he has the tracks that you recorded. When was that? Was that in your home studio?
That was actually in 2008. 8, so I was madly in love with she wasn't my wife then, but I was madly in love. And of course, when you're madly in love, you have to write a few love songs, right? So I had all these love songs that I had written, and I was actually house sitting for a friend. I just took all my studio gear over because I was determined to record some songs. So I just had like my little portable studio, and essentially did it all on a keyboard, my laptop, and a microphone, probably an acoustic guitar too. Yeah, but it was fueled by love. So
where are those songs now? Do you still have them?
I was going through an old box and I found some CDs because I'd made probably 100 CDs.
For you young kids out there, a CD.
Way back in the day.
Anyways.
Yeah, so I don't think they ever went digital. Now, a couple of them have popped up on Karis's YouTube channel, so I think I kind of remixed them after I got like some better stuff, and then peppered them in a couple of them. But like other than that, I don't think most people have heard them. Maybe one day could do like the 20-year anniversary.
You should. You gotta put them up. I think from what I remember, because I only had heard them that one time, I was very jealous of how good they sounded.
Oh, thanks.
And so it was. The production was great. The songwriting was awesome. When I first heard it, I thought it was like an actual. Like a recording artist, like in a Nashville studio.
As a wannabe recorder.
It's like I can empathize with that. But that's when I first heard you play and knew that you were a musician. So I was assuming in my mind that like you had just continued doing music.
Yeah.
And so you had been done recording. You did Live as Lions. You recorded their record.
There was another band called 9 Day Fall. It was another metal band that was in town, so I think they probably heard about my production from Live as Lions and those guys. And I even did a track for Brendan Ferris. Who actually is now like a famous YouTuber, Facebooker, which is so interesting. But what people don't really know is that he's like an amazing guitarist.
Wow.
He's like a Dream Theater type guitarist. Shreds and stuff, and so he came to me and we recorded a song, and I was watching it for Halloween because it's kind of a creepy sounding song. And I was just thinking, man, it's kind of crazy where life takes you sometimes. But yeah, that was kind of in the heyday, 2010, 2011, just trying to make a few bucks. And I realized with music that the money's not really in being an artist. That's why they're called starving artists. So I kind of found a little loophole by producing. And I did that for a couple years before we moved to LA. So,
and that's kind of where I'm going to now. So I had learned later on, like finding out that you'd gone into production for that reason, like the whole starving artist thing. It's like it's tough to break in, and so you moved to California.
Yeah.
So how did that develop? Like, how did you end up there?
Well, it was so interesting because my wife, she's definitely a charismatic personality, hence her name, Karis. And so just being involved with church and ministry, that's kind of her background. Is she's a minister. Specifically with youth and young ladies. So she would put on glam parties, and she would do makeup for girls in the villages here in Alaska. And one of the girls one day had told her, like, you should start a YouTube channel so we can watch you online. And it was like, this was, again, going back to 2008, 2009. I mean, YouTube was a thing, but I think YouTube started in about 2006, so it was pretty recent.
Yeah, right when I graduated high school was when it was really starting.
Yeah, so we didn't really know anything about it, but it kind of stuck with her, and so she decided, there was girls doing makeup tutorials, and they would just be sitting in the bedroom doing whether it was an everyday look or whether it was like some crazy, Halloween makeup or something like that. And so she always loved makeup and playing with it, so she had told me that she wanted to do makeup tutorials. And I come from a creative background, but video wasn't necessarily on my radar. But because she wanted to do it, I went out and got a camera, and I realized really quickly I didn't know what I was doing. Mm-hmm. So I had to it was funny because I went on YouTube to learn all this stuff. So I ended up learning how to use the camera from YouTube so I could make YouTube videos. But what really happened was Karis entered a competition called the Nick's Face Awards, and it was kind of the first of its kind, an online makeup competition. And so we were just in North Pole, like we weren't we were basically missionaries at the time, so we weren't necessarily making a lot of money, but she thought, let's go for it. It was a $25,000 prize. We're just living in my parents' basement at the time. We were pretty newly married, and so we started making these videos and putting them up there, and all of a sudden she was getting all these comments and likes, and people were voting for her. So she made it through the first round, the 30, and then she made it through the top 20. Somewhere around there she got, I was going to say retweeted, but I don't know if Twitter was a thing at the time. She got a shout out from like the #1 beauty guru who liked her video, and it was just like, wow, like all this stuff falling in place. And she ended up going to LA and competing live and won the whole thing. And it was like, we couldn't believe it, you know. So it kind of like we got thrust into this new world of YouTube. And so we decided to just kind of go for broke, and we moved to LA and we pursued it full time. Learned a lot, you know, a lot of challenges along the way, moving from North Pole to Los Angeles. But, but you know, like I said, like we learned a lot, and it kind of kickstarted our career on YouTube. So, yeah, during all of that, I wasn't doing a lot of music. I may have done 1 or 2 songs just to kind of keep it going a little bit. But really, I was like completely video and photography and kind of using creative juices, but in a different way.
Yeah.
And but the music's always been there, and it always will be there. So kind of now that we moved back home to Alaska, trying to kick that back up now.
Yeah, and now like I would say father of 3.
Yes.
And so that, I mean, that's a big mantle, you know. And that's but yeah, I as a dad as well, only have 2. And a husband.
I got you beat now.
Yeah, me beat. And then like of course working full time. And then you work full time as well for the city. So it's like finding that balance of creativity, because like you're talking about before, it's like it's tough to make a living like being an artist, and no matter what it is. Yeah. It's because as far as the product is, if it is it as a product, there's not a lot to offer outside of just the enjoyment. I think whether it be like with listening to it, or maybe the emotional response. Yeah. But like you can't build a house. Sure. Like you can't build a house with music, and you can't keep keep a boiler running with music. You know, there's this intangibility to it, and so how the practical value of it is determined by the people who listen. Sure. And so it becomes like, I'm going to pursue, like you did, I'm going to pursue something in the avenue of being responsible to my family, and maybe if you're single, to myself, and then still try to be creative or use the thing that I'm passionate about, whether it be like eventually video or now getting back into music again. Yeah, and I mean you've been a huge inspiration for me, because like I see your passion for songwriting and for music, and it's like it's a part of you, and it's like deep in your soul. And I'm with you. Even during all of that, when we're just super busy in LA doing that life, essentially, like I can't imagine completely forever walking away from it. Yeah. It's hard to fathom. You have to keep it going, I think, for the sake of the gift that's inside of you. I mean, like if you're a musician or a creative, it's like you have something that's really special. You realize like a very small fraction, I'm just making up a number, but probably 1% of people would have a gift like that. And whether you ever made a penny from it, like it's, you know, I hear folks say it all the time, I just wish I could sing, it would just be incredible. So if you have that, I mean, you got to use that, and it goes so much further than making money. I mean, I think for me, I've kind of thought that if I never made a penny, which I really don't make anything from my songs, but there's a fulfillment in just putting it out there into the world, like creating something that was like completely original, although probably we're a sum of what we've heard and what we've listened to or what we've seen. It kind of, every experience we have kind of goes into what we create, I think. But it's still unique because like all of our experiences are different. Yeah. So I think finding people that like value that, like that, it's intangible, but like it's like that is reason enough for me. If somebody like really grasp it, somebody really
appreciated it. Somebody really was blessed by it. You know, like to me, that is, I guess, payment in and of itself.
Wow. Yeah. I believe that as well. It is frustrating when you have an ambition to like want to be successful, whatever that can mean. Like the definition for example, sustainability.
Sure.
I would love to make a living.
Yeah.
Doing music. It's been my dream since I started playing guitar. But like I think it's so good what you said, because there's some you have to be willing to be okay with having that gift and maybe using it in creative ways, and not just have the goal of total fame. I think it can cloud the joy.
Yeah.
Of it, and again, like, this is talking as a person, as people who really wanted to do music and make it make it into all art or ambition.
Yeah.
It's like I want to make this be my thing, but I don't know. I think because right now I'm near the end of the Kickstarter, and I found myself really going to step back and be like, okay, so there's been times where like I'm starting to lose the joy.
Yeah.
Of doing this. Because maybe not turning out the way I want it to, so I'm trying to force it into something, and that doesn't help that a lot of companies have come up that try to feed off of people's need to be known and to use their art as, I mean, we know people who in the music industry, like bands who've sold themselves to a record label only to find out that they're like $50,000 in debt. And to something that we'll just go get signed and it'll really work out. Yeah, it's like no, they're a business, and so you get sold something and then you that necessarily isn't true. Yeah, and then you can really slowly lose the joy that was there in the beginning. Totally. And I think it's so wise in what you said. Like if they just bless someone. If they found value in it and they found a home in it somehow, like that needs to content me, since again I'm not doing this for a living. And so. But
so on the flip side though is like, if it's your number one passion and you feel it's like your calling in life, then I would say, see how far you can go with it. You know, of course that doesn't mean like sell yourself out or compromise for money or something like that. But I mean, if it's like not just a side thing or just something that you kind of want to just do a little bit here and there, but like, I mean, for you, man, like it's a calling. So if it's a calling, then I say go for it.
Yeah, I Emily Anderson is an example to me of like someone who just went all the way. Yeah. And she does it for a living, and right now I imagine it's super difficult. Yeah. You know, but. It's like, again, it's like she was her passion. She was working for Tyler Williams, and then she was like, I'm gonna go all the way. And then she moved to LA and got on Patreon, and she's doing it and taking that step into the unknown.
So I totally respect Emily doing that, and I know it going to LA. I mean, just to parallel, we hadn't made penny off of YouTube. Like, we were so naive. Karis had gotten like probably over 1 million views, but we hadn't monetized any videos because we didn't really know how. And we had even gotten in with like a quote unquote manager, but we were super naive. And I think the manager was a good guy, like a nice guy, but like his business style was not really to our liking. And so we kind of just showed up. And then just a culmination of a lot of things. It was like we were in over our heads. But when you're in that place, I mean, you're sink or swim. And so I think like that there's a lot of merit in just doing that. Because I think, again, if it's like your calling and you know you should be doing it, then like you got to take those leaps of faith, because it actually pushes you to a level that you have to get uncomfortable and like you figure out a way. So like you wouldn't necessarily, like where you're at in life, you wouldn't necessarily be able to make money doing it per se, but as soon as you put yourself out there, like you find a way. But yeah.
And so I kind of wanted to talk about this because it was a topic that kind of came up, and through the interviews, I'm learning actually how to interview. I watched Jeff Welch do these interviews, and I was like, it looks so easy. And then like my first interview, I edited out so much of things I've said because I was like, I'm an idiot. I'm cutting that out.
Hey man, I'm having fun.
Shut up. But I want to talk to you about that because through the Kickstarter I'm doing right now, I'm just figuring out what social media is about.
Yes.
Like I'm really trying to learn and YouTube can be considered like a kind of social media platform, and of course moving into Instagram.
Yeah.
Like what you guys are doing. I want to kind of talk to you about that. Like, how do you see? What is the utility of social media, and what are some boundaries that you think that should be in your opinion should be put in place for your own personal? I'm not talking about like sending like Zuckerberg to the to the jail or anything. I'm saying like from your own personal experience, like what are some boundaries and experiences that you've had to kind of made you rethink like what social media is?
Oh man, I have kind of a love-hate relationship with social media, and I think it was kind of right in the heart of the pandemic, and there was just so much going on, so much divisiveness, just with current events. It was like bumming me out to the point, and I just like cut social media off completely because I just realized it's such a time suck. And I realized, like you said, it's different for everybody. And so I feel like I've come back to it now, and I have a different perspective. But as far as like using social media like as a tool to connect with people, when we first started, it was kind of a novelty to like have like cinematography or anything fancy, because especially in the beauty world at the time, it was a lot of people just using their webcams to do makeup tutorial, and the backgrounds were just their living rooms or something like that. And so when we got into it, we kind of took the Canon 5D Mark II, and so there was a lot of production value, and I think for the time it was like a novelty and it was great. And then as technology has improved, now everybody kind of has another level to it, and it really made me realize that like really when people are tuning in, especially with vloggers, and like it's really to connect, almost like what you said Fairbanks folks do, is like connect with the person. Because if you connect with the person, online influencer, personality, whatever you want to call them, then like you're interested in what they have to say about anything because you like them. So when it came to the beauty community, if I guess I was going to do it all over again, like I would really focus on the personality and like looking right into the camera and connecting with people, because I think like that human connection is like what we all have. And it's like, at least in the vlogger world, it's like people they want a friend, and they kind of feel like they have a friend in you even though you don't know them. And like when we do events and whatnot, and girls would come up and want to take a picture, it was like they knew what we had for breakfast because we posted it on social media. And it's like, I don't even remember what I had for breakfast. And so if you can make that connection with people, it's not necessarily the easiest thing, but if you can find a way to do it, even with how social media has matured so much, like I think you can build that fan base, that audience that's loyal because they really connect with you as a person. Mm-hmm. And I don't necessarily have it figured out per se, but I think it was true then, and it still rings true today, I think. So I mean like just sitting and like talking straight into the camera, I think is really powerful as I look into the camera. As I look into the camera, I think not that every video has to be like that, but I've found that to be powerful.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, just on the topic of music and social media, it's interesting because like so many bands that we listened to in high school and college, like they broke up during the recession or whatever reason it was. The genre for me, it was post-hardcore or like kind of the tooth and nail bands of the mid 2000s, and like all of a sudden that style kind of went out of popularity. But now you see all those bands coming back because like they didn't have the infrastructure of the social media and the online presence. You still had to do the traditional record label. At least that's what you thought. I think you had to get the record deal. That was the only way you get distribution, all of this. And now all of a sudden there is a way. I mean, there's still a lot of work involved because you got to do everything. But at the same time, it's like if I wanted to put out a song tomorrow, well, maybe it would take about 3 days. I could produce something, mix and master it, throw it up on TuneCore or whatever platform you use, and it could be in Apple Music or Spotify, and anybody in the world could find it.
Yeah.
I mean, to imagine that 15 years ago, it was like, I mean, yeah, the CDs, you remember? It's like, well, how much is it going to cost to do like 1,000 CDs? It was like, what, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000.
Yeah.
And so it was like just the price of admission to get into the game.
Oh, totally. That's the only way you could, yeah.
You put a single up for $9.99, and it doesn't. I mean, I guess how many songs would you have to sell to make $9.99 get your investment back?
Oh
so I do realize that you can just using your promotion. I mean, even what we're doing right here with the Kickstarter is like, this is pretty cool opportunity that we have.
Yeah.
So I would say that you can do it.
Yeah. It is amazing to think how far how far we've come as technology and the ability to kind of do your own thing.
Yeah.
And like you said, you could literally post a song in a couple of days after, and it could be everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's all. It can be a detriment too, because there's so much now, it can get lost.
Sure.
But then with that, it can be found, and then like you said, using social media healthily.
Yeah.
For that personal connection. But also there's layers here. So social media, you have like the ease of production, but then you have social media, and then you have the passion by which you pursue your art.
Mm-hmm.
But then your passion, if you confuse that with your identity, with your art becoming your identity.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, a lot of companies try to sell like, you are an artist. And that's who you are. Like that whole thing, it's like, that's dangerous, because then once you rap, if you're an artist, that's who you are. And then if you fail as an artist, then you're failing as a human being.
Sure.
And then again, using social media as a way to promote your music, which then becomes promoting you as a person.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about, and not enough people care about your social media, then they don't care about your music, then you're not a real human being.
Sure.
And so that's a really dangerous place to be.
It is,
so
yeah.
I think going back earlier, I think it's what you said, like let the passion let that grow out of you, and find a way to make it to use it.
Sure.
But as an asterisk there too, is like, don't let that define who you are as a person, or just your value. And because I think because your failing as an artist is not your failing as a person. Yeah. And then you can really stunt yourself in your development as a person. Yeah. Just wrapping yourself up with your art.
Well, the numbers game is a game of futility, because, like you said, you get it. Unfortunately, Facebook especially has done this really well. They did a study where I think early on in Facebook, the like or the notification was blue. Mm-hmm. Well, they changed it to red, and all of a sudden they got way more engagement. Because for whatever reason, red is a color, like, it's not just catchy, but it does something in your brain when you see the color red. So you click on the notification, you see the likes coming in on the post that you just made, and you get that little dopamine hit. Yeah. But then on the flip side, what happens, and you make this post, and this is just general social media, just posting a picture of your cat or something like that. But even more so with art, because it's so personal, and it comes out of your very soul and your very heart. And then you don't get that, and you don't get the dopamine hit. You don't get that instant gratification of like, oh, I feel liked, I feel appreciated. Yeah, it's very dangerous. And I mean, I've definitely been there, whether it was with music or even the YouTube stuff, because we haven't always gotten the big views on videos. Some do and some don't, and you just kind of you feel super bummed when you don't. You feel like you messed up, and when that's tied to your value as a person. So you're totally right. You gotta separate. Like, if I didn't do anything but just exist, like, I'm priceless. Yeah. I have value. Of course, my faith, like, definitely plays a huge part in that as well. Right. But like, that's a big comfort for me anytime I'm feeling like that, is like, I gotta step back and say, like, if nobody heard this or saw this that I'm creating and producing, yet I was still doing this out of like a passion, that means something. That means something to me, that means something to God, and that means something to anybody else who might grab a hold of it. So I think that's kind of like where I start, and then from there it's like if anybody else gets something out of it, whether it's 10 people, 1,000 people, or 1,000,000 people, like that's just cool. That's icing on the cake. And so I think it's just tempered with like if you're passionate about it and you feel called to it, then go for it. Put everything you have into it, especially if you're good at it, because like it's just fun to see like how far you can go with it. So that's like the flip side is like let's see how far you can go with this.
So saying that, when's your album coming out?
Oh man, I had made a goal to have it out by the end of 2020, and we started fostering, and that's really been rewarding, and it's kind of like completely shifted my priorities.
Yeah, as it should.
But I guess talking about the song a little bit, obviously you and I have been talking a while about music, and I'll send you a demo, and then you'll send me a demo, and it's been this really cool a relationship of like, hey, I can show it to a buddy, get some feedback, and some encouragement, and then vice versa. And so you kind of when you reached out and asked me about being on the song, I had I think I'm maybe 4 songs into stuff I'm working on, but I kind of had a setup, and so it worked out perfectly because I had I'm just using an SM57 into a TIAC reel-to-reel just to kind of have a different sound compared to my condenser mic. So I basically just had that set up, and so when you sent me the song, I just kind of like did what I've been doing for my stuff. So it worked out really easy for me. I didn't have to set anything else up. But I don't know. I would just say you definitely like what you're doing with your song and how you're going for it with this project is definitely a kick in the pants for me. Be like, if he can do it, then I can do it. And especially if I'm gonna tell friends and tell people that I'm doing this, like I gotta finish it too. So I don't think at this point I'm gonna have it out in 2020. So I need to just make a goal to have it done next year. But it'll be a full length. Cool. And it's gonna be more of an acoustic project. Yeah. But
I love the stuff that you put out so far.
Yeah.
Like, I thank God so much for you. I love that song.
Another one for my wife.
Yeah, another one for your wife.
It's usually either a Christmas song, a song to Karis, and then this next batch is going to be kind of like just in the bedroom, like singing a song to God.
Good.
So.
Yeah, that's good. And I'm excited to hear it, and I appreciate you sending me the demos. It's always nice to kind of listen to something besides, just something that people are making.
Yeah.
It has a different, there's something about it. And, like, especially knowing kind of what you've been going through in your own life, like, and seeing the songs coming out of that, it's like it's a complete package. So I get the context as well as the song, and so. But anyway, I just want to say thanks for talking to me.
Yeah.
It's really nice. I have to do it over Zoom.
I know, right?
It's going to be much bigger video files, though, than the Zoom video files.
Well, just sitting by the fire has just been, it's just been really nice. I'm like toasty and warm. But seriously, y'all, you guys, please back my brother here, the Kickstarter project, everything we talked about, like coming out of your heart and soul when you invest into this project. You are investing into a great heart here, and somebody who really is passionate about music and about what he's doing completely and wholeheartedly. I could count on one hand like the people in my circle or even in this town that I believe has that, and he's got it. So please do support it and get the vinyl and the T-shirt and the whatever else you're offering.
Would it be egotistical of me to leave that part in if I'm editing it?
You gotta leave that in, man. For my sake.
Thanks, man.
Of course.
All right, cool.